All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Launchpad Podcast. I am your host, Gabriel Hardy, and in this episode today, I had a long conversation with my friend Thomas, who runs this church out in Georgia. And the name of the church is Blue Lotus Ministries Incorporated. And what they do, a big core ethos of their church is the sacramental use of Blue Lotus. And, they smoke it, they put it in their food, they make, all sorts of different products with it. They have these rituals around it. They're using it to help homeless people get off of harsher drugs, to help felons get off of harsher drugs within their community. I got connected with Thomas originally because he actually wholesales his Blue Lotus through our company, Minnesota Nice Ethnobotanicals. And if you haven't already, then you should go check us out at our website. It'll also be down in the description or show notes. We're the largest importers of Amanita muscaria, one of the largest importers at this point of Blue Lotus as well too. We're coming after Kana. We also have Kava, California Poppy, a lot of these awesome legal efficacious sort of plant medicine products. We sell them the raw products and fungi themselves. But then we also create these sort of consumer ready-made products and extracts and things like that. And we're all about high quality at an affordable price. So yeah, go check us out and use my discount code Amanita Ninja, all one word, capital Amanita Ninja, for 10% off. And whenever you support that company, you support the Launchpad Podcast. So I really appreciate it. But other than that, I hope you enjoy this conversation with Thomas. He had some really cool insights into the whole sort of like psychedelic, esoteric, spiritual church world and stuff like that, which I find like a very interesting sort of phenomena in general. So yeah, peace out. Much love. What made you want to start this church? When did you start sort of experimenting yourself with some of these botanicals and plant medicines?
Well, man, about 4 years ago, I started having symptoms of complex post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD for short. And I was taking medication. It made me feel horrible. And I'm talking about really, really, really horrible. I was a zombie. I would sleep all the time. I couldn't enjoy my family. I was in the room. I had the inability to function correctly because that's exactly what that medicine does to you. So I started looking for holistic ways of managing my PTSD. I tried pot. It didn't really work well with me because it made me a little paranoid and a little stressed out. So that anxiety right there was just not working for me. So my wife one day was perusing online and she said, "Hey, what do you think about Blue Lotus?" And I said, "I don't know what that is." And this is before I became a holistic health practitioner. And I was like, "I don't know what that is." She went on TikTok and it said it helped reduce stress and this, that. And I was like, "Oh, Lord, here we go. Another TikTok theme." So we ended up going to Etsy and trying it out. And the first time it was great, but then I ran into like a bad batch where it gave me adverse reaction. And it's because they put other ingredients in there. It's not natural Blue Lotus. So
Mm-hmm.
I reached out to, I was at that period, I was called Mobile Ministries LLC. That's when we first started our church. And we were just trying to spread the word of God and make sure people understood that God is a universal God, that divine individual, kind of transcends any type of name that you can give him or her, depending on how you want to believe in your God. And well, I reached out to Christian with Minnesota Nice Botanicals, and I was like, "Hey, I don't know if this is going to work or not, but my name is Thomas Alford. I run Mobile Church Ministries. We kind of have this spiritual practice where we smoke Blue Lotus, and it kind of helps a lot of individuals, especially the homeless community, and helping people get off of marijuana that want to get good jobs and function correctly if they have stress and anxiety like I do." And we built a whole community just off of Blue Lotus. So eventually I had to turn the name Mobile Church Ministries LLC, which was Mobile Ministries LLC, into incorporation. So we chose Blue Lotus Inc., which was pretty dope. And ever since then, I've been just experimenting with it and figuring new ways to use it. Like we now have shampoo with Egyptian blue lotus with a little CBD in it. We have conditioners with argan oil, Dead Sea mineral, sea moss, and blue lotus powder within that one little conditioner. We have blue lotus lotions. We have raw Jamaican shea butter, which we have infused with blue lotus. We have island body butter with infusion of blue lotus and Jamaican black soap, which also has sea moss and blue lotus. And we also have regular blue lotus and sea moss, but we get that from y'all and we're going to let y'all do your thing with that. I think that's about it that I can recall.
Yeah, I'm really interested in some of these kind of consumer ready-made products that you have regarding Blue Lotus. I think it's a very sort of interesting field of inquiry, and I'd like to maybe go further into that with you here within this conversation if we have time. I do have a hard stop right at about 1 o'clock for me, so here in about an hour and a half, I will have to hop off here. But I feel like we can get a lot of this covered today. If not, we can have you back on and stuff like that, or record a second part. But so what sort of like overall results are you seeing within your community through the use of Blue Lotus? And is it just sort of like this sacramental use where you guys are taking larger doses together? Are you taking microdoses of it throughout the day? Like, what's the sort of protocol for people looking like, and what sort of benefits have you been seeing within your community using it?
Well, our congregation, we'll use it this way. We use it in microdoses. When we feel stress, we'll either smoke it or put it in a tea, depending on the situation that we're in. Especially if we're around each other, we're smoking and we're drinking the tea itself. But how it's helping with the community and the rest of our congregation, it really gives them a relaxed feeling. They're able to do their work, they're able to function correctly without the anxiety and the stress behind life. And that's what's really cool about it. And then how we use I hate to bring it back up, how we incorporate our shampoos, lotions, all this good stuff is that helps us feed the homeless, man. That helps us do community outreach, and a lot of people that donate to us, we end up giving them the products anyway because none of it's for sale. It's just for donation purposes. And we partnered, believe it or not, we partnered with organizations like MWE Inc. that's making a way for the elderly to provide meals, resources to seniors. And I want people to know our work is about transformation. It's about rising from the ashes like the phoenix and stepping into to divine alignment and helping others do what they need to. I'll land it there. I don't want to take
Mm-hmm.
too much time.
Okay. Yeah. So, and like, it's really interesting to me because your church, this congregation, this sacred vehicle, it seems like there's multiple things going on here, right? There is the use and facilitation and distribution of Blue Lotus within the congregation. And then there's also on top of that something you alluded to towards the beginning of the conversation as part of the ethos of the church is to sort of spread the message and understanding of God. And also, from my understanding, something that you guys do with your church is this sort of community outreach and community work, with people, with felons, with homeless people, things like that, which I think is really, really beautiful and awesome as well, too. And so there's this multifaceted sort of approach being made and sort of attempts at what this vehicle is being used for. And so I know it's kind of a very loaded question, but like, how would you say that you guys utilize Blue Lotus to understand God and to help spread the message of God? And also, how did you originally come to your understanding of what God is?
You know what? I'm glad you asked that actually. And I don't even have to really go into much detail about it. I'll just jump in it and off script, we'll say that away because it's not scripted. We're being real here. Okay,
Yeah.
so Have you ever stepped on eggshells? You know, it feels crunchy, it's nasty, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
how it felt when I was going into church, like regular churches, the big, big churches. And I'm not going to dog them. I mean, they have their way, and they're taught a certain way to talk to you in order to receive your money. And that's one thing that kind of deterred me from it. Not, okay, I'll give you an example. One of the things it states in our 10 commandments is thou shalt not worship false idols. Yet we'll go into church and we'll look up on the cross, or even Catholic religions, no offense to the Catholic people. You'll have all these saints and statues of depictions of these saints and statues, or these saints that you're supposed to be praying to. Yet when you pray and you see that statue, you're praying to the image of that statue, and that's false idol worship. Same thing with when you go into a Baptist church and you look up, and there's a depiction of Jesus Christ right there, not just the cross to understand what happened and the sacrifice that was made, but a human being that has been made by another human being onto another false idol worship. And it really started burdening me. And then after that, when you get past this tray, it's an offering tray, right? You have to pay your tithes. When you get past this tray, you feel like you're required to put money into it because everybody else have done so. But our church, we don't require these things. We understand that there is a universal God, no matter if you're Muslim, Jewish, any religion that you believe in. We understand that that is a universal God. And everybody has a right to that access of the universal God itself. We
Yeah.
also don't require you to pay tithes. That's why we have all them items that we have, because we get donations. And we just don't want to. We're in a new age where all that stuff that's happening within churches is kind of outdated. And
Mm-hmm.
you have to bring people to God in a new way. And I
Right.
found God through, back to your question, I kind of got off track. Kind of found God through Blue Lotus. Like, man, this is a beautiful planet that we live on. We have natural, holistic things that we can be utilizing, botanicals, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and help ourselves through microdosing, through understanding what it takes to become great and live a peaceful life. And one of the things that I truly believe is God already put on this earth what we need. I'll
Mm-hmm.
land it there.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. I think so something that I've been taking note of quite a bit for the past like maybe 5-10 years now is this rise of quote unquote psychedelic or spiritual different non-denominational churches within the United States. There's hundreds of them. There's a bunch here in Kentucky where I live as well too. I'm sure there's a bunch there in Georgia, right? It's this
Definitely.
really interesting phenomenon that I don't think a lot of people like fully understand and grasp what's going on. And it's a really sort of interesting expression of the overall environment and collective psyche, I think, right? Because, your story of coming up and seeing the illusion presented in front of you within the traditional churches, I really resonate and can relate to that a lot in my own ways, right? But I think you can agree that while there is this sort of bastardization of God in the process of a lot of that, and this sort of attempt to like fit it into a box for a lot of times for ultimately for profit, there's weird incentive structures and things like that driving it. There is still, as a byproduct, a lot of the time of the overall incentive structure that drives a lot of it, still as a byproduct, there is still some good done that can be done for the community and people sometimes, where like maybe sometimes people are able to find God through that modality, even though I do think it falls most people short in a lot of ways, but
Yes, it does.
and then also there is like real community work that is done as well too. And so I think like something I've noticed within this trend, this market space, this place of these new gray market churches, and I say gray market, it's not all gray market, but it's a new market, right? Is that a lot of them exist, it seems like for the core purpose of wanting to have a sort of safe container and methodology of distributing sacred, entheogenic substances and psychedelic substances, which I think personally at the level of morality, like and ethics, like I think that people should be allowed to do that and create a container for that if that is the core intention behind it. I think that's fine. I think we need probably lots of that. I think that naturally will emerge. But I think what really kind of would take a lot of this to the next level, and I think how this is going to develop over the sort of longer term with a lot of this, is there's going to be an emergence of a lot of churches like you, man, where I think there is this core sort of like, hey, Blue Lotus is our sacrament, but also like we connect with God and we talk about God, we spread the message of God, and we work with like homeless people and felons within our communities and actually distribute the resources that way in a very sort of transparent way. And like this very, I guess the word I'm looking for is sacred reciprocity. And so, yeah, man, I think it's awesome what you're doing. I think that this, and I think you see it kind of in this big vision sort of way, like I just laid out and everything for you right there. And I guess I don't really like know if I have like a follow up question for you. I think like, yeah, like I said earlier, I can definitely relate to your story of finding God in this way of, I too felt as if though from a very young age being in traditional churches, as if though there was some sort of God, but he was being like bastardized for other people's profit.
Being hidden. Yeah, it's like you go behind the curtain and we have to like try to get through a matrix. It definitely feels that way. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, but you can go ahead, man.
It feels like we're trying to find the puzzles and nobody's giving us the right answers. And then what we neglect to see on the day-to-day basis is nature out there has been telling us this exists. They're telling us we come from apes, right? And they said that it no longer happens, right? The evolution just stopped for us all of a sudden, and that primate. Yet the caterpillar is still able to turn into a butterfly. And this is nature and God right there saying, hey, this is real evolution. You were created divinely. Just understand that. And everything you need is right here in your backyard. You just have to know what to look for or what neighbor you can ask, depending on where the neighbor is. Across the sea, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have to find different botanicals, especially like Amanita, which is pretty dope, dude. I drank some tea of it and talking about a lucid experience where you really can feel the divine within that product. My bad, not product, within that botanical alone. It's a really beautiful, we have a really beautiful planet that creates really beautiful things. And I think a lot of people are scared of it, so they kind of demonize it. And I'll land that there.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. Like when, because part of what we do is, and just our own sort of relationship with something like Amanita sort of necessitates that we have a level of understanding of it and awareness of it and all of the things. And so, we know a good amount about sort of what it's doing within the brain and the body, the receptor site activity, the alkaloid composition, things like that. And it's really interesting. There's a lot still left to be learned and discovered within that mushroom alone. But when you look at some of these plant medicines like Amanita, like Blue Lotus, and you look at their pharmacology and you look at the longstanding use of them and you look at how harmonious they seem to be with most people's bodies, it's kind of like, wow, nature did present us with this super packed, just like nature's intelligence, spectrum of alkaloids, medicine. Like the lotus thing is really interesting because, like lotus, we like Blue Lotus is by far our most popular lotus that we sell on the store. And we make, the Blue Lotus extract, Blue Lotus gummies, stuff like that. But there's a bunch of different types of lotuses. There's like white lotus, red lotus, pink lotus. And similar to Amanita, lotuses have grown all across the world in different parts of the world. Blue lotus and then red lotus, white lotus. And they all have decently pretty similar alkaloid compositions, but also different enough. You know what I'm saying as well, where they produce their own sort of why they're similar. They feel somewhat similar, but they also have like kind of different effects, kind of like different strains of cannabis or something like that. Right. And so like, yeah, man, it's when you look at something like Amanita or you look at Blue Lotus, it's hard to deny with just that. And when you really break that down, it's like that level of awareness that the Buddha describes looking at a flower. It's like, it's not just a flower, right? Like the flower didn't just like, the flower is quite literally all the air, all the water, all the earth composition, like all the things that went in to make it. When you look at something like Amanita and Blue Lotus, I feel like it's kind of easy to see God within that alone at the material level. But then you take it, right? And that's when it really, I think, is like it sells itself and it works the most magic is when people have their own direct experience. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, I guess that's my next question for you, man, is I can speak a lot subjectively about my experiences with Blue Lotus and what I've heard anecdotally from other people as well, too. But I would like to hear from you, man. What, like, experientially, what has Blue Lotus been like for you? What is the experience like? What does it feel like? And what has it been like for members in your congregation?
Well, when we use Blue Lotus together, usually during the weekends, we hang out, and I'll tell you the euphoria it gives me. Coming from a place where your mind is fractured due to a complex post traumatic stress disorder or some type of trauma from your past, depending on what it could be, right? When you smoke Blue Lotus, I don't know if you've ever heard like just imagine being in New York City and you smoking this and about 20 minutes later that turns into the crickets that you've been looking for. It gives me a euphoria of enlightenment. It's very peaceful. It's a beautiful herb. And when you drink the we also we drink tea, and it even heightens that experience. And then we throw it in our food that we eat in the congregation. We don't give it to our children. We eat it ourselves, and mainly the grown-ups. And it's just really wonderful. And you can infuse this multiple ways, especially in butter. But it just gives me peace. And my wife, she loves it. She'd rather prefer the Amanita fly, and it, it, it soothes her. And it talk about lucid dreamings on both of them. It's very different though.
Mm-hmm.
With Blue Lotus, it's like you're having this astral projection type feeling, and it's really wonderful. But when you take Amanita and you do it in micro doses, you kind of feel really amazing. But focusing on Blue Lotus, I'm not advertising or nothing, but I'm just gonna do this real quick, and put it back. No, I'm joking. It's really decent, and we love it. It's also really good for decorations if you want to just spice up the house real quick. But in a nutshell, man, and getting off track a little bit, in a nutshell, man, it's really wonderful. And it's a spiritual practice for us. It's not just something that we do for recreation, it's a spiritual practice. It dates back to Egypt, where they put it in tinctures and wine, and they smoked it, they turned it into incense. This is something that's been happening since the beginning of time. And it's
Mm-hmm.
a ritualistic practice. And how we deal with it in the modern day, the modern age, is very alchemic. We have alchemists that are able to use chemistry just to make it into what you need. I'll land that there because I know you're on a time schedule.
Oh, you're good, brother. You're good. I love hearing your tangents, man. I think it's very important. Like, so something that came to mind there for me was, you mentioned the historical use of it with the Egyptians. And what's interesting to me about that, a lot of reasons, like it's, depicted in a lot of their hieroglyphs and their stories and things like that. And it was one of their sacramental tools amongst what is theorized. There was many, there's a lot of depictions of like, mushrooms and hieroglyphs as well too. That's very prevalent. And there's like even the theory of there's a certain type of, DMT containing ayahuasca like vine that grew along the Nile River there during their existence, and like there's a lot of different, and so like likely kind of like we do in today's day and age, there's a lot of debating about what some of these sacraments were and which ones they used, and I think honestly, what it probably was is they used a myriad of different sacraments that were available that they had at their disposal, on top of a myriad of different other modalities, breath work and light deprivation and whatever it was, crazy pyramid structures, But there seemed to be this culture, I believe, of this alchemization of things, this finding the synergies that work together, becoming an alchemist, right? Kind of like we do today. And I don't know if you've discovered this in any of your experimentation, but it's something that I've openly spoke a lot about Blue Lotus, and it's something I'll continue to, because I think it's like very true and important. Is it is one of the most beneficial synergistic compounds that I've ever found for an altered state of consciousness, meaning it pairs very well for me with cannabis. It seems to pair very well for me with meditation. It seems to pair very well with serotonergic psychedelics, like very, very well with serotonergic psychedelics. It adds this very lovey-dovey and pathogenic twist to all of these different experiences in its own way. And yeah, the dreams from it are really unique. And so, yeah, it was just something I kind of like came to my mind there, is that it wouldn't surprise me if they revered it so much as such a sacred tool, because it does do a lot of things on its own, but also it synergizes so well with just about everything.
It gives you it opens up certain chakras as well. Do you know that Blue Lotus is being experimented on by a certain university that's nearby? Same with Amanita, to where they're looking into certain compounds of it to see if it can actually help with dementia and people with Alzheimer's, and including Parkinson's. Because
Mm-hmm.
I used to be like this, and I mean, when I smoke it, it calms me. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, I'm in a house. My child has a disability. I will refuse to smoke it in the house, but we do go outside. But yeah, man, it's wonderful,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't stress that enough. And then, like you just said, it has a deep rooted sense of alchemy.
Mm-hmm.
And many people that run apothecaries, ancient, botanical, I want to say shaman type people, okay, being realistic here, they still use that type of knowledge that was ancient, of course,
Mm-hmm.
to gather these items and create medicine with it. That's the whole part of being a holistic health practitioner. It's like a modern day shaman, and you get certified in that, and you can become a doctor later on. It's pretty cool, dude. Um, yeah, I'll land that there.
Yeah, I have seen I've seen some of that research that they're um, propose would be beneficial to do, in some of the preliminary data that back that, with this Blue Lotus being looked at for people with dementia. I believe it was nuciferine in particular that they have a keen interest in, and it
Yeah.
potentially helping with dementia. But then, yeah, the Amanita research is super interesting. I don't know if we've told you this, but we're dumping a bunch of money right now, and we're doing some Amanita research of our own. We just partnered with this company called Brain Mechanics, that is able to test a lot of different physiological responses and measure a bunch of different things in the body. So we're setting up our first rounds of Amanita research right now at the company. But we have, and I'm not a doctor, so this is a medical advice, and this is anecdotal data right here, but we've had multiple customers with Parkinson's who have reported that Amanita has like literally been like a game changer um, for them. And I don't know exactly what the mechanism of action is there that's going on, but if I had to guess, I would say it's a combination of a few different things, a lot of different things, and it comes back to this thing that we were alluding to earlier, that not that they're magical bullets and they don't all work for everybody, right? But there does seem to, for a lot of people, when you dose correctly, seem to be this really harmonious effect on the body overall. And like, when you look at something like Amanita, it's like, Yeah, it's like got this very light, non-addictive GABAergic like receptor side activity going on, while also like acting on glutamate as well too. And then also it's like a nootropic and working on the acetylcholine receptor sites, but then also has anti-inflammatory effects to it. It's like it's such this like powerhouse and like shotgun formula of medicine, quote unquote medicine. I'm not a doctor, but
Right.
yeah, man, it doesn't surprise me that it would. And also what I think goes on too, I think this is a big part of it that can't be understated, right? And I think this doesn't devalidate it by any means, any of it, but I think this is a real effect. I think when you have something like Amanita or Blue Lotus that you introduce and becomes or has become a normal part of your regiment and the lifestyle and all the things, like I think it becomes sort of an anchor point, man, in reality, where every time you can, especially if you do this intentionally, every time that you consume it or every time you're interacting with it, that spirit, you're kind of reorienting yourself to that core intention and that and your mind frame, and using it as an anchor point to bring you back to, like, even if it's as simple as I'm taking Amanita because I want to be healthier, right? Every time you take Amanita, you're going to remind yourself, your mind, body, and spirit, that I want to be healthier and I have the intentions to be healthier. And there's crazy studies showing the power of our minds alone, where you can give someone a sugar pill and they can have the same intention and have crazy effects. So I think when you combine that with something like a plant medicine like Amanita or Blue Lotus that has this, first of all, sugar pill effect, but then also a real measurable physiological effect with a badass alkaloid profile going on, I think it's a very powerful little matrix in its own right to really bring people back into sort of harmony. And I think a lot of, I'm not a doctor, once again, but like I think a lot of diseases and conditions that people have are just that. They're diseases. They're this disharmony within the body. It's inflammation and it's stagnation and it's, things like that. And so once again, they're not magical bullets, but they're an important key part of a matrix, you know what I'm saying, that exists there for people. So yeah, dude. Yeah.
Well, I know during our endeavors, we've had Marco's Pizza, Papa John's, in Warner Robins. They donate a lot of pizza to us. I know Miracle Hands Car Wash. It's an outreach program, dude. Um, they give jobs to people, give them hands-on training. Alice's Place LLC. They teach you how to take care of your loved one at home. Wonderland International. They teach you CNA stuff. They get you certified. Alice's Place Adult Day Care. You could actually take your loved one with a disability to Alice's Place Adult Day Care, dude. Have them feed them. They work with dementia people. They work with all type of individuals with each type of disability. I'm just shouting out them real quick. Truck Parking Club. We allocate all the money for their trucks parking in our yard to put into the mission that we have. Mormon Fricks Real Estate Firm, they're dope. Minnesota Nice Botanicals, that's our sponsor. They're pretty awesome as well. And Christian, like I said, he's a really cool dude and he's making movements. And speaking of him, man, like, I'm glad I found him, because if I didn't, we probably keep running into weird Blue Lotus, because we've run into some that they were putting, that synthetic cannabinoid chemical in it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of our church members were calling me talking about, hey, Thomas, this is giving me some adverse effects. I said, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Bring it here. We ran it to the lab. It's right up the road from us, believe it or not. And they found that it had traces of synthetic cannabinoid in it.
Yeah.
And it was getting people sick. But I'll end that there. My bad, dude.
No, you're good, bro. You're good. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That's actually a really important part of all of this, and I'm glad we get to cover in today's conversation, is the overall sort of Blue Lotus market within the United States. And like, it is a real issue, and that is like not, I mean, self, plug here, but like you do have to have a reputable vendor. It is really important with like all of these plant medicines, anything that you consume, but especially these plant medicines. It's really important. There's a whole weird shady market around it where there's both people selling you very low quality actual plants, you know what I'm saying, and or they're selling you consumer ready-made products and extracts that are just actually not that plant extract, right? Like, so with the Blue Lotus in particular, how the big issue within the industry is that the distributors for the flower of it, there's a lot of issues of people not actually selling real Blue Lotus, and they're selling just usually a different type of lotus, and a lot of times they'll even add like blue / purplish food dye to it to make it like appear like, and it's kind of like I said, it's talking about a minute ago with the overall lotus phenomenon. There's a lot of lotuses out there all across the world, and some of them do have similar effects with similar alkaloid profiles and look even shaped similar and things. So if you can harvest a bunch of those and get a bunch of food dye on it, it does look and pass and sometimes somewhat smell like Blue Lotus and things like that. And so that's a big issue within the market. But then also a lot of the, unfortunately, most of the, if you come across these like consumer ready-made Blue Lotus products, like a Blue Lotus vape or Blue Lotus vape juice or Blue Lotus gummies, like, or a lot of Blue Lotus extracts and things are synthetic cannabinoids, because it's this weird area where they're able to appeal to two different customer segments. They're able to appeal to the customer segment that is fully aware that they know these are synthetic cannabinoids, but just wants to have access to them. And so they're happy to go along with the front to be able to order this to the doorstep. And then there's also people who have kind of vaguely heard and have a vague understanding of the fact that there exists these psychoactive plants out there that are legal. A lot of times they don't fully understand what's actually like the pharmacology of them, what the kind of typical effects are and things like that. They just have passively heard maybe that Blue Lotus can get you high, or Blue Lotus can be kind of trippy, or whatever it is. And so now they see this Blue Lotus product thrown in front of their face that's advertised in a very trippy way. They try it, synthetic cannabinoids, and they're like, damn, Blue Lotus is really strong or really bad or whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? And so that is a very real issue within the market. And so like we really pride ourselves as a company as like providing the highest quality shit at the best price that we can for people, you know what I'm saying? And like, yeah, Christian's a soul brother. He loves you dearly. He loves the church. We're going to come out there to Georgia at some point so we can, just kind of like meet everybody, give you a hug, record some content, do stuff like that too at some point. But
if I could jump on Christian real quick, you know what's so cool about him? He literally goes out and sources this stuff. He literally does that. Like I've seen him where I go on his Facebook, I'm just perusing, scrolling Facebook. He's in Peru, scrolling. He's in some other place, and he's literally looking for these products that he puts on his website. And one thing about Blue Lotus, if you really want to know if it's fake or food dye in it, when you soak it or steep it into a tea, this is the best way to find out. If it turns blue, you know that you're drinking dye. This should turn a amber like brown. It's a very beautiful tea color that comes from it. If it does not produce that color, don't touch it. If you put it in a conditioner, no offense, bro, and it doesn't stay purple within that conditioner the same way, then it's not real at all. You know what I'm saying? And when you put it in your body butter, if it turns a brown light color, it's not real. The only time it should turn brown is if it's in a shampoo, tea, or tincture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are some really easy ways to tell. Honestly, like if you're somewhat accustomed to the real Blue Lotus and what it feels like, that is usually enough too for you to be able to tell. And if it is synthetic cannabinoids, you're going to tell really quickly if it is. But so something I'm kind of curious about, man, is the formation of your church and what that process was like, and if you kind of faced any difficulties within the process of that. Because like I said earlier, there's this really massive phenomenon across the country where a lot of people are doing this, but there's also simultaneously exists this industry or some people want to sell you an $8,000 course for how you start your psychedelic church, right? So like,
Right.
could you put the people on some game?
I will actually, man.
Yeah.
I'm the guy to go to if you want to get it done almost free. Okay. Now, the reason I say almost free is it's only going to cost you $110 if you live in Georgia, depending on where you live. It's only going to cost you $110 to incorporate your business as a nonprofit with the Secretary of State of Georgia. Don't let anybody do your paperwork. You can do it yourself. It is so easy. Then when you file for a 501c3, you use a 1023 EZ form. This is $270 and some change, $275 at the most, if I remember correctly. And you wait. And the IRS will tell you, hey, are you trying to benefit from us? Are you trying to actually run a church or we're not really a church either. We're just a ministry. We filed as a 990, a 999X, if I remember correctly. It was religious other or religious related because we didn't fall under Christianity. We didn't fall under Buddhism, Muslims, all the stuff that's already associated with their own religion. But it's very easy. But the only thing you are going to run into, depending on what Bible Belt you're coming from, and I do mean that literally, is the way that people will demonize and ostracize your belief system. And if it doesn't have to do with Jesus, their version of God, and anything that you would go to a Bible and promote, then they're going to really attack you with their congregants. And this is just being real, okay? We've already had people judge us because we know the Bible. We preach from the Bible, but I use the Gospel of Thomas, the Book of Enoch. I kind of source my religion to where it fits. And I take aspects from all religions, not just one, but mainly the Gospel of Thomas, because I truly believe that heaven is within and without of you. If somebody tells you, hey, heaven's in the sky, you're going to look up back then and say, oh, God is a bird. Same with the sea. If somebody says it's over there in the sea, well, the fish is God. You see what I'm saying? God is within you. You are created in his image. And if you really want to get down and right with it, you become Christ-like. And you can do things like he did. I'm not saying you're going to walk on water, but you can be Christ-like and you can live a prosperous life. And saying that it is difficult to run it. It's very cheap to do it. You have to actually write your articles in, your bylaws, your conflict of interest, you have to be able to come up with your budget plan. You have to come up with all these things, and it has to align with your 501c3. You have to prove that you're out here doing it, providing food. You have to speak a million things. It says 1,000 things. You have to really be out here doing nonprofit things. You just can't be profiting. I mean, you could pay your volunteers, you can pay your board members, but are you really a 501c3 that's out here helping its community? Most churches, they fall under, and this is real talk, they use the guise of, oh, we're religious, you're not allowed to interfere. But in reality, how many mega churches do you see doing this right here, which we're going to be doing within a year or two, where we purchase a house or two from the auction down here at the courthouse? We donate one to a family in need. You don't owe us nothing. But when you do get some time, donate to our church. When you have free time, we're not requiring it. Then we sell a house, buy two, donate a house, and just keep that process up. And the only requirement we're going to have is you being financially stable and the ability for you to actually pay your land taxes and your bills, because Christ knows the reason it went to the auction in the first place is because this. So this is something that we're really trying to work hard for. And it's not, we don't benefit here, man. We've funneled all of our money back into the church until it gets off the ground, and then we'll start receiving a paycheck within 4 years. Right now, it's just boots on the ground. We're trying to make it work. We're doing fundraisers. We're doing this. We're feeding the elderly. We're feeding the homeless. creating outreaches by partnering with certain individuals just because we want to see this thrive. And we want people to stop walking on eggshells. We want them to look into Blue Lotus. We want them to understand that Amanita is a route if you don't like the way Blue Lotus feels, and it actually helps people so much. Like, you know how many people have stopped doing drugs that I know, or stopped smoking cigarettes just because they're trying out our Blue Lotus? Yeah, some people are like, oh, it's a placebo effect. Well, that placebo is working really good then. Like you said, that sugar pill, and then you got the real pill. That real pill that you're taking is causing so much adverse effect. Let's look at metformin real quick, okay? As a diabetic, I should know what it does. It ruins my kidneys. But if I know that there's a separate route, a holistic route, taking care of my body and doing what I'm supposed to restart my insulin intake, through the body, it creates its own glucose. If you're able to restart your body in the right way that you're supposed to, well, it's pretty dope. And I'll land it there because I got excited, man. I mean, I really believe in what we do, so I'm feeling it.
That's great, dude. Yeah, and so if you're okay with it, I'll include like some of your contact information down below in case there is anybody listening who wants to contact you, thinking about starting their own church. Because, like, man, I don't know. You never know. It's really hard to. There's a lot of layers, and there's a lot of conversations that we have, and a lot of data you need to truly find out what someone's real intentions are and incentive structures are. But, like, I've looked at a lot of these churches and things like that. Not all of them seem to operate from this place of, so some of them do seem to operate from this place of it looks like it's for profit, which, is like, once again, I think people should be able to have access to these things, stuff like that.
You do.
But I think it's this sort of law of this sacred reciprocity thing that you have going on within your own community there within Georgia. And that's another aspect of it too, man, is that you're, within like rural Georgia, right? Like a lot of people go to and will move to fucking Denver or LA to do this, but like you're in like the Bible Belt and here you are with the Blue Lotus Church, which I love because I live in the rolling hills of Western Kentucky. I'm also in the Bible Belt. I'm kind of like a psychedelic sheep here myself. And so, yeah, I bet there is a lot of like interesting community sort of pushback and weird looks and things like that. Yeah.
They're like, oh, you're worshiping a plant. No, bro. We believe in God, okay? We're using that plant as a means to stay away from worshiping false idols, okay? Mm-hmm. That's the best way to do this. Not only that, there is a way to see if the churches are doing correct. You follow that 990N, that 990EZ form, or the 990 form itself. And you go to these websites where you can see if they're actually a nonprofit. They have to be transparent on their own website, which we are, on their Facebook, and on that IRS website to where you can see what they do with that money. And if stuff starts really looking weird, you're supposed to report that. Not only that, when you pay tithes, every time you pay some money, at the end of the year, they're supposed to give you a percentage of that either back or through a tax write-off. And they're banking on most folks not knowing that. We give gift in kind tax write-offs, and we allow a person to tell us or call us with their tax people, say, hey, we donated this. Can you give us a PDF file of what we've already done? We give them that. And we're completely transparent. If you go to my Facebook page, it's a link in our website. You could go to our Facebook page and you're going to literally see everything. Posts from other people, Alice's Place, everybody that are telling you what we do. We also make free music for people, dude. Like jingles. We do it free. If you want to, you can donate to us. If not, here's your jingle. Have a good time. It should be readily available to all people who are first starting out. And our church is giving back in so many ways. But I'll land my plane there too. I'm gonna table that for the next time we see each other.
Yeah, brother. Yeah. So it's been an amazing conversation. We're probably gonna have to wrap things up here soon. But before we do, do you have any other sort of hot takes or insight or predictions as to where this sort of psychedelic church, sacramental church market and phenomenon in the United States is going to go over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
I can do one better. I'm going to tell you this. The traditional churches are failing its people. We're not supposed to get political. You've seen that here recently, big time, right? Well, no offense to Trump. You've seen other churches do the same with the Democrat. They're not supposed to do any of this. You're going to see an uptick in other churches trying to lead you the right way and use their own beliefs. But I believe that here in the near future, within the next 3 years, we're going to see an uptick in psychedelic churches, marijuana churches, believe it or not. And you're going to be shocked at what happens when people actually get together as a community and actually in harmony without having to step on the eggshells that I've told you about and being judged when you go to these places. Hopefully they stay online more than anything because you want to avoid what the Catholics are going through where scandals start happening, right? And I won't even mention that, but we know where I'm going with that. And yeah, I believe it's going to be a thing and it's going to be something amazing. And so many people will benefit from it. And then at that time period, the Bible Belt itself will start allowing certain research to go on that we're not allowed to do because we are limited in the old ways or the black days, what you call the dark times. You know, we're still living in medieval times over here in the Bible Belt, man. If you say something wrong, you might as well look out that door, and hopefully the Catholics don't come to get you. No offense to Catholics.
And what's really striking to me about that, man, is I see that within my own community here. Like I described to you, I live in a community that I think is probably somewhat similar to yours, and the amount of people that I know personally and have met here within this community who I would regard as very respectable, noble, admirable people, intelligent, even self-aware, yet there's this mental kink around God. And it's a lot of it, I think, comes from programming. And I've even had some relationships dissolve just because I simply wasn't willing to kind of conform or see God in their own way. You know what I'm saying? And it's really been an intriguing thing for me to take note of within my own existence. Is like, how can you? And I think this is everyone's just own sort of personal path and karma, right? You know, but like. Some of these people I know, it's like, how can you have this level of intelligence and awareness and things, yet have such a big mental kink around God? And I truly, man, I think it comes from this place, like I said, it's programming, and most of that is fear. Like the programming got driven in because of the underlying fear that was instilled. And
fire and brimstone, man. That's the fear that they program. And you're so right. I remember doing an Uber trip one day, dude. That's how I function and support my ministry plus my house bills. I'm doing Uber, and the dude was just talking, and I knew he was sent from a Bible person. He was a Baptist. And he was like, yeah, that's my church right there. He goes, some people need to go back to church and stop preaching what they're preaching. I looked back at him. I was like, oh, if that's not targeted harassment, I don't know what is, man.
Wow.
And yeah. And he said, yeah, him and his wife and his children need to go back to church and get rid of that idiotic idea that he has, and literally said it at that. I took this man all the way to Atlanta's airport, and I started telling him what truly is God. I said, do you have a depiction of Jesus in your church? I'll land it here after this, I promise, and I'll keep it quick. I said, you got that depiction of Jesus in church? He said, yeah, we do. We worship every day. I said, but are you worshiping that depiction? How do you know what he really looks like? Wool hair, copper skin, amber eyes. I said, that's the real Jesus, right? He goes, yeah. I said, so, yeah. I said, in the Bible, it states thou shalt not kill. But during the Roman days, we ran around taking over countries just so in the name of God, we kill people. We still do it today, don't we? Wars. All right. It also says that a woman shall bend and do what her husband wants him. She has to bend her will to her husband, or else she will go bald. That's telling me that my wife has to do everything I say, and she's the king of the household here. You know what I'm saying? So there's no way I'm going to do that. And then The money thing. Jesus turned over the tables for that reason itself. I would not let you be in my father's house, stealing and scamming people. And I'll land that there because if I keep going, it's going to hurt a lot of other people and I'll just be good. And I don't hate on their religion or any other person's religion, but I know for a fact that when you lead a sheep to the slaughterhouse, man, and you're telling them they're going to be burning up in fire and brimstone, and you're telling us that witchcraft is horrible, yet you had Moses, a wizard that could literally split the sea because of divine power that was given to him. That doesn't make you think of Gandalf real quick, dude. And I'll land it there, and I won't down them any further.
Yeah. Yeah, I think honestly, man, we could probably spend the rest of the day just shitting on them.
And I don't want to do that because everybody's entitled. Yeah, man.
Yeah,
I'll be good.
yeah. And then, I agree. Everyone's entitled. It's just such an interesting psychological expression.
It's very depressing.
Because it's what it is, and I truly believe this, and I express this to people who exist within this mind frame. I think it's mental illness. Because if you really run around in this almost narcissistic way, believing that that person's going to be lit on fire and burn for eternity because he doesn't believe in the same God. There's fucking 90 plus religions in this world currently being practiced, bro, way more than that for sure, It just from a young age, man, I sniffed it out, this doesn't line up. But I also had this inclination that I think there is a God. I just don't think it's this,
It's very universal. Come on. Jesus, when the Tower of Babylon happened, I'm landing it after this. I won't even keep you no further. When the Tower of Babylon happened, man, we all fell because we were trying to get to the heavens. Even though we were going to die at a certain height in the atmosphere, we were just going to die. And people were just going to keep doing it. So the universal God pushes this thing over real quick. Okay, y'all won't be able to communicate for a while. Therefore, that's the first time we've actually had several languages because we were supposed to have that happen. He even split the earth so we could be in several places to get away from that idiotic idea that we're going to escape. And now we're still doing it with rocket ships, yet we're not making it any further than the first moon landing, okay? So there's a reason we're here, and we're supposed to enjoy what we have here, man. And that's just being realistic. But like you said, it is very mental health. And then they want to say we're schizophrenic for believing this way, And we're looking at them, man, you're praying to the skies here. You're Come on. You're supposed to pray inward. You're supposed to be the temple itself. Let's be realistic, dude.
This Tower of Babylon thing, it made me think of this reaching for the heavens and God being like, dude, come on, you're missing the point. Come on, get back to it. And this it reminded me of some of my own personal sort of hero's journey that I've been on, but that I also see reflected within the collective as well a lot too, within this sort of psychonaut, esoteric, spiritual space is a lot of this isn't the path for everybody, and everyone's path is different, but I see this commonality, this common trend where people do a lot of exploration at a certain point in their life. And a lot of people do continue with the exploration. Some people till the day they die, they continue, exploring that space and tapping into those altered states of consciousness. And some people will do it for a while, experiment heavy, and then kind of stop or slow down, right? But regardless of that and where people end up in their path with it, a commonality that I've noticed and something that most people pull away from it is that they typically enjoy this world more and just being in this world in their existence, and they see the importance in that, and they've gotten that message of hey, this life in this world is sacred. Nothing wrong with poking your head above the clouds for a while every now and then, whatever it is, but part of the reason why you're here isn't so you can build a tower to heaven, it's to be here, you know what I mean? So that's really beautiful and interesting that you brought up that Tower of Babylon thing, and that's kind of what it provoked in my mind, the thought that came to my mind there.
Well, I think Jesus showed us what could really happen. Think about it this way, man. He dropped the avatar when they crucified him. He died. He came back. He came back, and his own followers looked over and said, I don't know that man. I won't believe it until he shows me the holes in his hand and that mark right here. So what happened was he dropped the avatar, reincarnated through another body. Years have already passed to where he could have been 30 again. All right. And then when he came back, they didn't believe that was him. But he's saying we're always going to come back. It's just how you live, and I really believe that we come back because I know I've met my wife before. I have, what is that called? It was in the Matrix where you have deja vu and you're like, hold on, I've been here before. You have a dream of something prior to it happening and you're like, hold on, how can I correlate this to my real life? Should I tell people or are they going to think I'm crazy that I've actually experienced this in a dream? So, yeah, Jesus showed us we're going to come back. We're going to enjoy the fruits that God has laid here. We just have to understand that you go within to do so. And that's all our church is about, to understand spiritual awakening and being enlightened to what could be, and it's not saying it's not in existence. It's you can believe in whatever you want to believe in, be at peace, love thy neighbor, do the right thing, and explore yourself so you could be healthy. I mean, what do you see nowadays? A person on that phone walking around like this? It has to be so lonely that you can't do nothing but play on your phone all day. So I'll land it there. I know you have another meeting.
Yeah. One last thought is this story of Jesus and resurrecting himself and coming back, right? It's interesting because something that's reported a lot amongst like gurus and yogis is that in the process of them becoming quote unquote enlightened, there was this sort of death of a previous character that they had assumed, right? There's quite literally stories of yogis crying, thinking about their past lives, and yet they weren't even past lives. They were just different variations of themselves within this life, certain egos that had to die along the path. And then something that a lot of psychonauts talk about almost annoyingly sometimes, and it can be misrepresented and misunderstood, but it is ego death, right? That is a real phenomenon that can happen within the psychedelic altered state of consciousness, and so there's something within, kind of like you said, a core part of your church is the sort of phoenix, the death and the rebirth, right? I think we're kind of collectively entering into an interesting stage of humanity where I think there might be somewhat of a phoenix sort of phenomenon happening, a death and a rebirth. So yeah, brother, I really appreciate you and everything you do. I appreciate you coming on to the Launchpad podcast. I will be sure to put all of your links and contact info, links to your church down below, things like that. But yeah, if there's anything else you want to say to people, have at it.
All right. Quickly, you know how you had mentioned the phoenix, so I'm going to land it like this. The lotus flower is born or rises from murky waters, nasty habitat. But once it does that, it rises to a sunshine. And you look at the phoenix. So no matter how bad your past, no matter how bad life is and life gets, know there's a light at the end of that tunnel and you will blossom eventually. And then when, like you said, that ego death, when you finally drop that baggage that you're carrying around in life, you finally renew who you are. You come back from the ashes and it's your time to shine. Don't take advantage of that opportunity though, because there's so much to life than being depressed. And there's other alternate routes than becoming addicted to medication. And I'll land that there.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Thomas. Much love, brother. Peace, everyone.